knows that consciousness, during that experience, one was conscious. And so one can reflect back on the consciousness that was present in that experience. And so in this way, one is examining the experience in terms of, now we have 4 of the aggregates, and now within the experience as well, the body was present. So that forms, that is the aggregate of bodily form. So in this way, one gets all 5 aggregates into that experience. And if one has a sort of more refined development of the jhana, then one can investigate it in terms of the jhana factors mentioned here, even just taking the first 5, which are the applied thought, sustained thought, the joy, the blissful feeling, and the one-pointedness of mind. Okay, pull away. Take the, Johnny has the microphone.
Bhante, what you just explained was made according to the mainstream of understanding, right?
Yeah.
But from the sutta itself, I really cannot see that Sariputta emerged from the jhana in order to investigate all those factors. If we read the sentence, the mental factors or the states were defined by him one by one as they occurred.
Yeah.
So, and also the paragraph later on indicate that Sariputta really emerged from the meditative state.
Yeah.
So what I really like, because this issue has been confused me for a long time, what I really want to know from Bhante is just simply from the sutta itself, can you tell, just ignore the mainstream of understanding, but I think the mainstream of understanding comes from maybe Visuddhimagga. But my question is, according to the sutta itself, what would your comment be? This is the first question. The second is, does the position that one emerges from the jhana and then contemplate the states later on, as stated in the Visuddhimagga, have any sutta support? I'm sorry to ask those questions because it's been years, and because this is a very crucial point how one practices with the jhana. So I just like to know the answers to my 2 questions.
Buddha, will you answer? I have to say, it's when I was going to answer this lady's question, I said this is a rather controversial area. And I said I'd like to avoid that, and so I'll explain according to the mainstream. But now you've opened up the controversy. Yeah, okay, I know your point. It seems to me also that if one looks at the sutta on its own terms, it seems to be saying that the investigation takes place within the jhana itself. But one thing where Nyanamoli translates he defined it one by one as they occurred. Now in the Pali, there's nothing that corresponds to the expression as they occurred. It's I wrote the word Anupada Dhamma Vipassana. It's insight into Dhammas. Anupada is rather obscure, according to the state. So one shouldn't be misled by that expression. Though I do admit, even if one takes out as they occurred, it seems to me that according to the text, Sariputta is analyzing the jhana in terms of those factors within the jhanic experience itself. That's the way it seems, but I have to say, I don't see how it's possible, according to my understanding of jhana, to be undertaking an investigation like that while one is in the jhanic state. It may seem possible in the first jhana because applied thought and sustained thought is there. But say one comes to the fourth jhana, or the formless attainments, where we have the same expression here. So I will go along with, I have to say, I have to go along with the commentary on this, that it seems to me to be correct. Did you want to add something to this, Katie?
Would that be acceptable to make a 3-point comment personally?
You have to turn it on, or?
So it is on, but I'm not able to get it to articulate So I was thinking three things. One, exactly was you were saying about fourth jhana. At a certain point, there's an experience that doesn't feel like there's agency there, personal agency. And at that moment, simultaneously, there can be insight, something experiential, but that doesn't have a component of agency, thinking or planning or investigating. And second, when that ceases, when the passing away occurs, it's incredibly natural for my agency, myself, my mind to come back and start asking very reasonable questions. What was that? What was that? And it, as I think you were saying, it will replay the experience or attempt to replay something that was experiential, but it'll attempt to form an understanding of it. And I find that that's where the commentarial comes in, of trying to explain. And then third, I find the sincerity of Poe's question about technique so wonderful and difficult. I think a lot of us, myself included, go through or experience that difficulty of which way is right, which way to do this, how to get this right. But I find personally that both explanations are correct, but the challenge of words and re-explaining something that is personal and interior, but not personal, kind of a shared mental experience. Bhante, who should I have said this
If
to?
there's comments further to this issue, rather than questions on another topic. Okay, I think Boe wants to say something further.
Bhante, I'm sorry. After this, I'll forget about this issue. Is it possible that the sustained thought and applied thought in the second jhana just refer to the the mental function in related to the meditation object?
In the first jhana, you mean?
In the second, or even in the first or the
Because
second?
in the second jhana, there's no initial thought and sustained thought.
Yeah, so in the first jhana, and so it just refers to the meditation object only. So when in the second jhana, when a practitioner doesn't have sustained thought and applied thought, that refers to the meditation object only. That means when his concentration, the level of his concentration has reached to that stage that no sustained thought or applied thought are needed anymore, but he still can have investigation into other factors. Is it possible that it's not possible to accept this kind of interpretation? So sustained thought.
I understand what you're saying. To myself, it doesn't seem possible.
It's not possible.
I didn't say it's not possible. I said to myself, it doesn't seem possible.
And the reason is?
Because it seems to me that to be able to distinguish the state into the factors and to know each factor, individually, requires a certain exercise in we call vitakka vichara, thought and examination, that wouldn't be possible in a state in which those are absent.
Thank you.
That's the way I understand it. Okay, Dina, and
Hi.
Richard after.
It seems to me that by the time you're in the second jhana, it doesn't even occur to you to think about what's happening. It's just you're one with what's going on. So if you started to investigate and think about it, you'd no longer be there. I mean,
Yeah, that's the way it seems to me.
yeah, it comes much after
Yeah.
the, oh my gosh, I was there.
Mm.
Yeah, there are three sets of terms that run through the whole thing, right? I mean, the first set, which in paragraph 4 is applied thought, sustained thought, rapture, pleasure, unification. That's the variable, right? Those are the 5 variables, and they each jhana and each base state, right, has a different combination.
Right.
Of presence or absence of those. Now, contact, feeling, perception, volition, and mind is a constant. Those are the aggregates, right? Isn't contact the same as rupa? Its form? No?
Contact is not explicitly, in the suttas, contact is not explicitly included amongst any of the 5 aggregates.
It's not, but
it's in the Abhidhamma system, then contact gets put into the 4th aggregate, the aggregate of mental formations.
so then volition, is that mental formations?
Volition also is in mental formations, yeah.
So, but that's the set that's repeated through all 8, right? Why is that the set that's repeated, right, rather than the aggregates then? And why should, if contact and volition are duplication, right, what's being left out, and why is that being duplicated?
Yeah, first, contact and volition are not the same thing. I said that in the Abhidhamma, they're both put into the aggregate of mental formations.
Yeah.
But they're 2 different factors.
Okay.
Okay, it seems to me, this is maybe another reason why I suspect the sutta of being a little bit later. It seems that here a new way of looking at experience is being introduced to go along with this older scheme of the 5 aggregates. In this scheme, they're taking 5 factors which partly correspond, or mostly correspond to the aggregates, but we have here, but all of them in this scheme are mental factors. So we have contact, feeling, perception. Okay, so contact in the old aggregate scheme doesn't fit in.
Yeah.
Then feeling, of course, is the same as the aggregate of feeling. Perception is the same as the aggregate of perception. Volition is the main factor in the aggregate of mental formations.
Yeah.
And then chitta, or mind, comes to be identified with the aggregate of consciousness.
Yeah.
And so here we have 4 factors
Yeah.
which correspond to 4 of the aggregates.
Yeah.
But the rupa, or form, is not mentioned in this scheme.
Yeah.
And now in the suttas, contact is often mentioned, even though it's not assigned a distinct place in the 5 aggregates, but it's often mentioned as the condition for feeling, perception, and volition. And so contact, because it's mentioned so often in the suttas, it comes to be included in this scheme of 5 mental qualities.
Okay, but isn't contact with rupa? That is, it's kind of like saying it's treating all of the senses as forms of touch, right? It's like saying, okay, you see something. It's like, you know, your eye is being touched by light from the thing, right?
It's using touch here metaphorically.
Yeah, okay, but the reason I was thinking that contact was associated with rupa is because it's the contact is contact with rupa or by rupa, right?
For the most part, but not exclusively, because there's types of mental contact in which the mind is contacting, or the mind is cognizing a purely mental object. In that case, the mind is making contact with, say, an abstract idea.
Right.
Say I have the idea of a unicorn.
Okay. So that's an image. In that case,
okay, that's maybe a bad example because it's based on a visual impression. The square root of what? The square root of 3.
Okay.
Square root of 5. Okay, so here the mind is making contact with a purely abstract object. So there is a contact there of mind with the object, though rupa is not directly present either in the faculty, which is mind, or the object, which is the abstract idea, square root of 5. Of course, rupa is present as the body, the physical body, but that is not directly engaged in that contact. So rupa, contact is not the same. Contact doesn't necessarily imply the presence of material form.
All right. Then is it an equivalent of the term intentionality?
Contact?
Yeah.
No. It's
No.
Volition would be the equivalent of intentionality.
Well, no, I'm talking about in the phenomenological sense. That is like an Husserl. What he means by intentionality, and the tradition of phenomenology and logic is simply
derived from Brentano. I would say that intentionality, in that sense, derives from the definition of any of the mental factors would be defined in terms of intentionality. Like perception, what is perception? It perceives. What does it perceive? It perceives red, white, blue, yellow, and so on. Volition, what is volition or intention? What is volition? It wills. What does it will? It's volition in regard to form, sounds, odors, taste, tactile objects. Consciousness, what is consciousness? It cognizes. What does it cognize? It cognizes form, sounds, odors, taste, tactile objects. Yeah, so I would say intentionality in the phenomenological sense is implied by the definition of each of these mental factors.
Each?
Yeah.
All right.
So all mental acts are intentional in that sense. That any mental factor is a mental function in regard to an object.
Okay. Last, you have this set: zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention. That's a constant set. Those 6, they're all essentially mental virtues, right?
Or mental qualities.
Concentration, qualities of concentration. And they're constant through the whole thing. And what I'm wondering about them is, how come when you vary the elements of a jhana or a base, right, there's no variation in the mental qualities which are involved in putting one into that state? That is, those are constant in all 8 states.
Okay, those
right?
are constant in all 8 stages.
Yeah.
But let us say that they're constant in generic terms, in that they're in each one of those states, these factors will be represented, but the quality of the factors in the different attainments will be different according to the level of the attainment. In other words, I'll use his terminology, zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, and attention in the first jhana, in the second jhana will have a different quality than the zeal, decision, and so on in the first jhana. And similarly, when one goes to the third jhana, they become more subtle, more refined. The fourth jhana, still more subtle, more refined, and so on, all the ways up to the final stage. At each level, these factors become subtler and more refined.
Okay, thank you.
So it's like, maybe to give an example, if we have a whole bunch of maybe caps like this, of different shades of red, from this is a little bit burgundy color, could be a darker red, the bright red like your scarf, is that a scarf? Or sweater, up to Katie's shirt is almost getting to be a reddish orange. So we say that they're all red, but there are different shades of red. And so we say that here there's different shades, zeal, decision, energy, mindfulness, equanimity, attention. They're all present, but different shades. Okay, well, this will be the last question.
In Digga 16, the Buddha recounted an experience, a deep meditative state when he did not hear or see raging storms with thunder and lightning. So I wonder what level of jhana you have to be in order to gain such deep concentration that you no longer hear or see, raging storms with thunder or lightning. Is the first jhana strong enough to...
I think if there were raging storms and thunder, it would disrupt the first jhana. To know what state the Buddha was in at that time, I remember he says, but he was still percipient. So it was not the attainment of cessation of perception and feeling.
Yeah, he said the state, although remaining conscious, he did not hear or see raging storms with thunder or lightning. So he remained conscious.
Yeah, the word used is sanyi, which is related to sanya, perception. So it's perception, consciousness, they go together.
So like fourth jhana? Or?
The text itself doesn't specify, so one would just have to guess.
Does online have questions?
Excuse me?
Does anyone online have questions, or is that opening a can of worms? Does anyone online have questions, or am I opening up?
Oh, I see there are people online.
Usually there are. But I don't have my computer open. I apologize. I just opened something up. I can't help it.
There is a question online that's asking, is actually a statement, and the question is first jhana may not be a prerequisite of stream enterer?
Okay, this is where I have my opinion. And I actually wrote a paper on this, which they could probably find on the internet. It's called Jhana and the Lay Buddhist. I think it's available online. And my impression from many descriptions of the lay Buddhists in the Pali Canon is that they have reached the stage of stream entry, but they were not attainers of jhana. Or at least they were not, let's say didn't have mastery over the jhana so that they could attain it at will. Maybe they attained it briefly before going into stream entry, but they were not like regular meditative masters of the jhana, so they could just sit down and enter it. Like we have Anathapindika, who is a businessman, Visakha, the laywoman who had many children, a household full of children, grandchildren. And yet they were able to become stream enterers through the power of insight, but one doesn't get the impression that they were jhana meditators. We could come back for further discussion since we have a little walk this time, let's make it 12:20. So we could come back for a maybe half an hour discussion. And then I thought I would take this whole sutta today. But we'll continue this. We won't have the class next week because there is a meditation course going on from starting tonight until next December 1st. I think next Sunday. But we'll continue with the sutta the following Saturday. That will be December 7th? Okay, December 7th. Okay, so let us end with the sharing of the merits. I guess we don't have the sheets here, but if you know, you can recite along with me. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahitika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu sasanam. Akasata chabumata deva naga mahitika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu desanam. Akasata chabumata Deva naga mahidika punyantang anumoditva chirang rakantu mang parang etavatacham hehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe devanumodantu sabba sampati siddhya etavatacham hehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe bhutanumodantu sabba sampati siddhya etavatacham hehi sampadang punya sampadang sabbe satanumodantu sabba sampati siddhya bhavagopadaya vichihetato etantare satakayupapanna rupya rupicha sanya sanyino dukkha pamuchantu pusantu nibbutting. Okay, we could end with 3 bows to the Buddha, or half bows to the Buddha. So we could stand.
Bow to Bande.